Good morning, hi again. So for this video, we're going to discuss about the graded recitation so that you will know the solutions, and this will serve as your review for tomorrow long quiz. Okay, let's start. For number 1, convert 0.143 ounce to grams. So in our case, I gave 1 ounce is equal to 0.0283 kilograms. So we must use it so that we can get the conversion factor and conversion of this one. So always write the given first, and then so we have 0.143 ounce, and we're going to multiply it to the conversion factor, which is ilalagay natin yung ounce sa baba para lagi natin siyang nakakancel. So ang goal naman natin dito is makancel ang given o yung original unit para ma-convert natin doon sa gusto nating unit. So, multiply by 0.0283 kg over 1 ounce. Multiply natin ulit sa 1,000 gram over 1 kg. Then, we're going to cancel all the units para matira yung goal natin, which is the grams. So, the overall here is 4.05 gram. Okay, just take note that mas maganda na diretso na sa calculator yung nasa conversion natin. Let's say, ganito yung solution natin, maganda na diretso na yung multiplication para hindi na babawasan yung mismong exact na conversion niya. Kuha po. Okay. Now, let's move on to number 2. We have here convert 21.667 yard to feet. So, binigyan ko po kayo ng 1 yard is equal to 91.44 centimeter. And 1 meter is equal to 39.37 inches. So, we're going to write again the given first, and then write kung ano man po yung given na conversion factor na sa tingin nyo ay pwede natin gawin para makancel yung mga unnecessary units. So, we're going to multiply the given by 91.44 centimeter over 1 yard, multiply by 1 meter over 100 centimeter, and multiply by 39.37 inches over 1 meter, and multiply by 1 feet over 12 inches. So, as you can see, hindi ko na po binigay yung 1 feet over 12 inches because supposedly dapat alam natin ito. Ano po? And since dapat ay diniretso natin siya sa calculo, magiging sagot dyan will be 65.00 feet. So, gaya ng sinabi ko for our class, I want you to fix for decimal places, pero as long as, for example, for our long quiz tomorrow, pag ang nakita po sa choices ay 4 decimal places, and then you must choose it. Another reminder, take note that I don't limit you to use what is the given conversion factor as long as magpaparehas tayo ng sagot, and mas maganda, mas maunti yung solution, or mas maganda, mas maikli at shortcut yung ginagawa niyo. It doesn't matter as long as we came up from the same answer. We convert 1 over 8 meters or 1/8 meters to inches. So I have here a given conversion factor, which is 1 feet is equal to 30.48 centimeter. Kung titignan po natin yung questions, there is a fraction. So don't worry, hindi naman po mahirap pag fraction. Kung nalilito kayo dun sa 1 over 8, why not convert 1 over 8 into decimal? So that hindi nakaka-intimidate tingnan, hindi ganun kahirap tingnan. So when you convert 1 over 8 to decimal, we got 0.125 meters. And then again, multiply it to the conversion factor, which is 100 centimeter over 1 meter times 1 feet is equal 1 feet over 30.48 centimeter multiplied by 12 inches over 1 feet. As you can see again, I didn't give the conversion factor such as 100 centimeter is to 1 meter and 12 inches to 1 feet because those are conversion factor that you must know. We get a final answer of 4.92 inches. Please don't forget the units. Okay, now let's have the number 4, which is convert 4 miles to feet. So we have a conversion factor here. We have 1 kilometer is equal to 0.6214 miles. And also we have here 1 meter is equal to 39.37 inches. For that given, we can write the solution. First step, write the given. 4 miles multiply by. So, it's up to you naman kung ano yung gusto nyo maunang i-multiply as long as makakancel natin yung original unit and came up from the unit we have that we are looking for. 4 miles multiplied by 1 kilometer over 0.6214 miles and then cancel the miles. Patitira na lang yung kilometers and then we need to cancel kilometers so that we must multiply 1,000 meter over 1 kilometer and multiply it to 39.37 inches over 1 meter. So you can cancel out those units and as you can see the remaining unit is inches. But again, we are looking for feet. We're going to multiply it for another conversion factor, which is 1 feet over 12 inches. So in overall, we have 21,118.98 feet. So please take note, don't forget the units. Number 5, convert 1/4 pound to ounce. Okay, another one here is we have a fraction. So I hope you already know what you need to do, especially if you are looking for an easy way to understand the fraction conversion. So we have here a given 1 pound is equal to 0.45 per kilogram. And again, yung pound, additional lang, the abbreviation unit is 1 lab or LB and then LBS or labs. 1 ounce is equal to 28.35 grams. So, we convert 1/4 to decimal, which is 0.25 pound, multiply for a given conversion factor, 0.454 kilogram over 1 pound, times 1,000 gram over 1 kilogram. And therefore, we cancel kilogram as well as pound, and we need to convert grams into ounce, which is, I'm going to multiply 1 ounce over 28.35 grams, and when we put it on the calculator, we get exactly 4 ounce. Here, convert 60 kilometer per hour to meter per second. This time, I don't have any conversion factor because those units are very familiar for you, especially kilometer conversion to meter and or conversion to second. Okay, so we're going to write the given, which is 60 kilometer per hour. We're going to multiply it for 1,000 meter over 1 kilometer to cancel kilometer, as well as 1 hour over 3,600 seconds, and we're going to cancel the hour. That's why we come up from the answer 16.67 meter per second. Okay, for number 7, we have here convert 40 kilometer per hour to inches per hour. So we have here a 40 kilometer per hour multiply by, so you can convert first kilometer to meter. So we have here 1,000 meter over 1 kilometer and multiply and convert the hour to seconds katulad ng ginawa natin kanina, which is multiplying to 1 hour over 3,600 seconds. But we are looking for the inches, so we need to convert the meter into inches. So I have here a conversion factor, which is 1 meter is equal to 39.37 inches. Okay, so you put that on your solution and then please direct input in calculator so that we can minimize the differences in the decimal points. We have here 437.44 inches per second. Next, we have here number 8, which is convert 50 kilometer per hour to meter per second. Same as number 6, if I'm not mistaken. So you're just going to write 50 kilometer per hour and then convert to kilometer, which is 1000 meter over 1 kilometer. And then again, the time, which is 1 hour over 3600 seconds. So I'm expecting here na once na nakakita kayo na ganyan tanong is alam nyo na ang gagawin. So when we direct input it in the calculator, we get the answer 13.89 meter per second. Now let's move on to number 9, which is convert 50 miles per hour to feet per second. So I will give, or on our recitation, there was a given conversion factor, which is 1 feet is equal to 30.48 centimeter, as well as 1 miles is equal to 1.609 kilometer. So let's write first the given, which is 50 miles per hour multiplied by 1 hour is equal over 3600 seconds to cancel out the hour, and then we need to cancel out or convert the miles into kilometer by putting the conversion factor, which is 1.609 kilometer over 1 mile. And then for that, we can cancel out the miles. And it's easy for you to convert kilometer into centimeter. So we all know that 1 kilometer is equal to 100,000 centimeter. If you are not familiar on this one, you can write the number line. Tanda pa ba yun? Yung meter yung nasa gitna, and then you're just going to move the decimal for you to convert a centimeter, for example, to kilometer, or meter to centimeter, and so on. And then, so we can cancel out the kilometer. We need to get feet, so we need to put the conversion factor, which is 1 feet over 30.48. As we put it on the calculator, we get the final answer, 73.32 feet per second. Next, we have here number 10, convert 20 kilometer per hour to inches per second. So we will have here the given conversion factor, which is 1 meter is equal to 39.37 inches. Take note to put the given, which is 20 kilometer per hour. Let's convert it per hour to seconds, which I'm going to multiply 1 hour over 3600 seconds times 1000 meter over 1 kilometer, multiply by our conversion factor, 39.37 inches over 1 meter. Then we're going to cancel out meter. Then we can get the final answer, or the final unit we are looking for, which is 218.72 inches per second. Okay, just take note for the conversion. Kung may part ng quiz ng conversion, please don't forget the unit as well as the correct rounding of the decimal places. And let's say nasa given is whole number, so you're going to choose kung ano yung pinakamalapit sa given. Okay, so we're done to the conversion part of our graded recitation. We're going to move on, to the vector. So now we are done to the conversion part, or the part 1, which is conversion. We're going to move on now to the vector part, which composed of the finding resultant or angle, or either finding the component vector of the specific graph. Okay, for number 11, you must find the component vector of a body with a velocity of 225 meter per second with a direction of 78 degree. So for this given, as you can see, since we have a resultant given and an angle, it's easy for you to identify ano ba yung hinahanap nung problem. And take note, when we say component vector, tandaan, we are just looking for the Vx and the Vy component. Okay, so first to you need first to graph the given. So we're going to graph this one. So please always draw a Cartesian plane, lalo na sa mga nalilito pa. So you need to graph the direction which is 78 degree. That is, ang default natin kapag positive ang angle will be counterclockwise ang ikot. Then we have 78 degree, then put what is the resultant force which is 225 meter per second. And then for us to get the component vector, laging tandaan, hindi ito magbabago. And I need you to remember this forever. Okay, so we have here Vx is equal to V cosine theta. Laging si cosine ay kay x lang. And then for getting Vy component, we have V sine theta. And then sine will always be for y. We're just going to put the given on the formulas given. Okay. So 225 cosine 78 will give you 46.78 meter per second. And in y component, tip lang, so once na nag-enter kayo sa calculator, it's good for you na pag halimbawa si sine na yung kukunin, wag na natin burahin. Lagay na lang natin yung parang cursor dun sa cosine and then palitan natin ng sine para mas madali siya. But as long as kung ano man yung mas gusto nyong gawin, it's okay. So, tip lang yon para mas ma-maximize natin yung time at mabilis lang yung pag-solve. And then, 2 to 5 sine 78 will give us 220.08. So, for our class, for the end time, I'm saying that I'm using 2 decimal places. So, please be careful with rounding up and then don't forget the unit. So, those are the component vector, which is 46.78 and 220.08. If the questions is asking you for coordinates, obviously you're just going to write the coordinates for that. So same lang din naman, x will be 46.78. You didn't need a unit for coordinates because that is the one that we supposed to graph on or put in the graph. So no need for unit if the question is coordinates. So that is the form for coordinates. So napakadali lang kapag component vector. We have find the resultant force 30 Newton east and 40 Newton north. Okay, don't forget to graph this one. So we have here the Cartesian plane and then first, okay, actually, graphing the vector, yung order niya doesn't matter. Kung gusto nyong unahin si 40 Newton or si 30 Newton, it doesn't matter. Parehas pa lang din yan ng graph na ipapakita. Pero para hindi kayo masyado malito, why not use the first one given? So in my case, I choose to draw the first one, which is 30 Newton. So, if possible na pag nag-graph kayo is merong different colors, mas maganda para hindi kayo nalito. So, 30 Newton is, so we have into positive x and then 40 Newton is up. So, please, in graphing the vector, please be accurate. Even though estimate lang siya, please be accurate. For example, mas hahabaan natin kung sino yung mas malaki yung magnitude. Mas mahaba yung length ni 40 newtons kasi mas malaki yung magnitude na. Okay? And then also in angles, even though it's estimate, please be accurate. And kumbaga tama yung estimate niya, yung hindi naman malayo sa katotohanan. The resultant force, so V and R, it doesn't matter in any sources naman. It's up to you kung ano yung gusto mong gamiting variable or letter. Then we have the angle. So we're going to find, of course, if we are asking for resultant force, you must get the V and the angle. So, B is equal to x squared plus y squared. It's okay kung nakita natin ay R is equal to x squared plus y squared. Same lang yon. Meron pang ibang resources na ang ginagamit is FR, which is resultant force. So, again, it's okay as long as you put the correct values and correct formulas. So, simple Pythagorean theorem, we have 30 squared plus 40 squared, and then square root, we get 50 Newton. Don't forget the units. And then in getting the angle, tangent, okay, cotangent. Now, in getting the angle, we have here inverse tangent is equal to y over x, which our y is 40 over 30. So, we have inverse tangents 40 over 30. Once we input it on the calculator, we got 53.13 degree. So, please take note that y is always the vertical one and x will always be the horizontal. There is some cases kasi, for example, ng last time, since ang unang nabanggit, halimbawa, na pagkabaliktad si 40 Newton, mas nauna nabanggit yung 40 Newton kumpara sa 30 Newton. Nangyari, akala nila yung ilalagay sa taas ay yung laging huling sinabi. So, si 30 yung inilagay sa taas. Meron pong ganun in cases. So, I hope na iti-check nyo, ito-double check nyo. Basta si Y yung laging nasa or vertical. So, again, the final answer for the angle is 53.13 degree. So, that's it. That is the resultant force we are looking for. So, may nagtatanong, absolute value ba dapat yung angle? Since in my class, I'm just asking for the true angle of the diagram. That's why it's 53.13 degree. Or in some cases kasi meron nagkakaroon ng negative. Pag negative siya, ibig sabihin ay clockwise ang ikot. So, kung makikita nyo dito, since positive siya, from the x-axis na positive, iikot, ang angle niya is 53.13, kaya siya positive. Kung nakita nyo na negative 53.13 yan, ibig sabihin, naka-inverse or naka-flip sa baba yung triangle natin o yung diagram natin. Kasi nga, clockwise ang ikot kapag negative. Number 13, find the resultant force 50 Newton west and 120 Newton south. Okay, so please have the diagram. So we have a Cartesian plane. We're going to write first the west, which is 50 Newton. Since western yan ay nasa negative x. And then 120 Newton, which is south, we have on the vertical negative. Okay, so 120 Newton. And then for that, we're going to connect the origin to the final location niya, which give you the vector or the resultant force and the angle. Same nang ginawa natin before. We're just going to use the Pythagorean and then that inverse tangent y over x. So, we're just going to complete the formula by putting the values. So, negative 50 squared plus negative 120 squared will give you 130 newtons. Then, when we get the angle, we have 67.38 degree. Okay, as you can see, so kahit inverted yung triangle niya, pero since kinuha niyang angle is from ang relation niya dun sa negative x, so that is the 61.38 and that is a counterclockwise na ikot or rotation. That's why nag-positive siya. 14, which is find the resultant force 50 Newton north and 30 Newton east. Same, we have here we're going to graph. So Cartesian plane and then always graph first the first one, which is the 50 Newton in the positive y and then 30 Newton is in the positive x. We're just going to connect it. Please label all the diagrams with the forces. Then when connecting and showing the resultant force, you can write V or take note it is an R and then the angle itself. So we have here b is equal to x squared plus y squared is equal to 30 squared plus 50 squared. So we have here 58.31 Newton in resultant force. In our angle, we have here angle is equal to inverse tangent y over x, which is our y is 50 and then our x is 30. Will give you 59.04 degree. So this one, finding resultant first, actually it's very easy for you because it's just a simple Pythagorean and then the inverse tangent. So don't forget the two formula. Okay, number 15, we have find the component vector of a body with a velocity of 190 km per hour with a direction of negative 35 degree. Okay, so we're going to graph the diagram first, and as you can see po, the direction is negative 35 degree. And sabi ko, ang angle can be negative or positive as long as tama yung pagkakagraph mo. Ibig sabihin lang naman ng positive, negative is the rotation. Pag positive, counterclockwise. Pag negative, clockwise. That's why as you can see here, we have a clockwise rotation. That's why nasa baba yung 35 degree. And then put the unit which is 190 km per hour. Then for finding the component vector, again, we have Vx is equal to V cosine theta. And then for Vy, we're going to use sine. So please put the values to the formula and then we get 190 cosine negative 35 degree will give you 155.64 km per hour. While in B1, By, 190 sine negative 35 is equal to negative 108.98 km per hour. Okay. So this is the x and y component. Let's say the question is give the x and y component. Ito lang naman po yung gagawin nyo. Don't forget the unit. Okay, and then for example, ang hinihingi ay coordinates. You're just going to put it on the coordinate form even without the unit. Okay, here number 16. This is another part of the graded recitation wherein we're going to find the resultant force by having 3 or more forces or vectors. So we have find A plus B plus C. If this one we have here the given 300 Newton, which is on 180 degree, 400 Newton in 270 degree, and 500 Newton into 50 degree. I'm going to write or draw the diagram. So first, para hindi tayo nalilito, unahin natin kung sino yung unang nabanggit. Okay, so we have 300 Newton lies on 180 degree. Makikita nyo siya ay nasa negative x. And then, 400 Newton is on 270 degree. So, meron po tayo dyan, dun sa dulo ng unang vector, gagawan mo yan ng Cartesian plane or ng x and y axis kung nalilito kayo. And then, kukunin mo yung degree niya, that's why yung 400 Newton natin ay pababa. And then, the vector k, which is 500 Newton, same lang din, dun sa dulo ng 400 Newton, you're going to make an x and y axis, and then locate the 50 degree. Then makikita nyo na siya ay diagonal towards the origin. There are some questions, ma'am, bakit po yung ibang resources, halimbawa, parang pare-parehas siya na nanggagaling sa origin, hindi yung pinagduduktong-duktong. Eh, di ba ang rule natin, kung natatandaan nyo yung vector before, we have head to tail. Laging ganon. Yun yung pinakang standard or ideal natin, pero at some point, pwede din po yung lahat ay nasa origin. Same lang siya kasi that will tell the law of parallelogram. Na kahit siya ay pare-parehas na, kahit pinagduktong-duktok mo siya or compared to the naglalayas lahat sa origin, parehas lang naman siya. Okay, so with that diagram, we're going to find the x and y components of all the three given vectors. So we have here vx1 is equal to b1 cos theta, and then so on with vx2 and vx3. So you can use different letters. It's up to you kung ano yung sa tingin nyo ay nadadalian kayo at hindi kayo malilito. So we're just going to put the value 300 cosine 180 degree. Then give you 300 Newton. Then for getting the Vy1, we have B1 sine theta, which is 300 sine 180 degree. Then we lead you to 0 Newton or 0. So as you can see naman, even sa graph, kahit hindi nyo na siya i-input, okay lang yan. Kasi sa graph makikita nyo na yan. Since si x o yung kulay red natin, yung bx1 natin ay nasa negative x, naglalay sa mismong axis ng x. So ibig sabihin, magsisiro talaga yung y niyan. Kasi hindi naman siya dumaan sa kahit na anong y. Kuha po. Okay. Now let's get even to dun sa mga y, halimbawa y pataas, as long as na dun siya sa x-axis, once na dun siya dumaan, ibig sabihin magsisiro yon. Kung sa y, edi 0 ang x. Kung sa x, 0 ang y. Now, let's move on to the vector 2, which is v2 cosine theta, which is 400 cosine 270, will give you 0. And then we have v2 or vx2 is equal to v2 sine theta, vy2 is equal to 400 sine 270, and vy2 is equal to negative 400 Newton. So, makapapansin nyo, since dumaan siya kasi 270 siya, diba? Ito naman ay 0, 90, 180, 270. Lahat ng dadaan doon na makikita nyo yung angle, magsi-0 talaga siya. Kung sa 90 at 270 yan, ang 0 ang x. Kapag nasa 0 or 180 naman siya, ang magsi-0 ay yung y. Next, let's move on to vector 3, which is v3 cosine theta. Vx3 is equal to 500 cosine 50. Vx3 is equal to 321.39 Newton. In getting the y component here, V3 sine theta, that is 500 sine 50, that will give you 383.02 Newton. So for that vector components, please make sure to double check putting it on a calculator, and even though writing it, kasi marami talaga nagkakamali. Careless. Okay. Now we're going to get the summation of all the x components, and then after we have the y component. Negative 300 plus 0 plus 329.39, we have 21.39 Newton. In Vy is equal to 0 minus 400 plus 383.02 is equal to negative 16.98 Newton. For that x and y component, we can already get the resultant force. So pagkuha ng resultant force, Pythagorean. So just going to input the values of x and y component into Pythagorean theorem, which is x squared plus y squared. That will give you 21.39 squared plus negative 16.98 squared. When we square root it, we can get the answer of 27.31 Newton. And next, if we have the magnitude, move on to angle, which is inverse tangent is equal to y over x. And then y natin is negative 16.98 over 21.39. So when we put it on the calculator, we can get the negative 38.44 degree. So meron din po akong nakita na nag-draw ng resultant force, yung mismong given natin na o yung mismong nakuhang sagot. Very good yun. Kasi dun mo talaga makikita yung angle niya. So kung makikita nyo dito, pinlat nila yung x and y exponent. Sa x, 21.39, and then si y is negative 16.98. Then you're just going to connect that. That's why makakakita ka dyan nung ang pinakang angle niya talaga is negative 38.44. Kasi nga pababa ang ikot or clockwise. So find 17. Find A plus B if we have 45 Newton without the angle, 60 Newton with angle 170 degree. So for that, we can draw the diagram for this one. Madali lang ito kasi dalawa lang naman yung vector niya at wala pang angle yung isa. So kapag walang angle na given, tapos positive siya, automatic siya ay naglalay sa positive x. Kung negative 45 Newton yan, siya ay papunta kay west. Sa x pa din yan. You can also try to put that on the component formula which is cosine. Then 0 yung angle na ilalagay mo. So magsi-0 pa rin yan kung sakaling siya ay nasa x, 0 pa rin yung y niya. So same lang din. Kaya kung ako sa inyo, tandaan lang natin or know the concept na kapag yan ay nasa x, automatic 0 yung y niya or vice versa. So we're going to draw it. So again, 45 Newton, draw agad dyan sa x-axis which is the positive part. And then from the head of 45 Newton, you're going to put x and y axis for you to draw the 60 Newton. So, okay, so you're going to track 170. Then we have this kind of diagram. For that diagram, we can get the x and y component. So bx1 is equal to by cosine theta or 45 cosine 0. So this is what I'm saying. Actually, you can skip this part because since alam nyo na nandun siya sa x-axis, hindi nyo na kailangang i-input yung 45 cosine 0. Pero kung gusto nyo talaga at para mapatunayan, okay, when you put that on the calculator, you can just get 45 Newton because cosine 0 will give the value of 1. And then yung by1, we don't put it on the x component anymore because we know that it's on the x-axis. That's why we have the 0 value. Okay, now let's have the second vector which is v2 cosine theta. So 60 cosine 170 will give you negative 59.09 Newton. And then by2 is equal to v2 sine theta to get the y exponent. 60 sine 170 is equal to 10.42 Newton. For that, we have the 4 x and y components. So, kung meron na tayo niyan, summation. So, ang pinakang concept talaga nito, pinagpa-plus natin lahat ng vectors. But, again, don't disregard the sign because sign is very important. 45 minus 59.09 is equal to negative 14.09 Newton. Vy is equal to 0 plus 10.42 is equal to 10.42 Newton. So we have the x and y component. Then put it on the Pythagorean theorem which is negative 14.09 squared plus 10.42 squared will give us the 17.52 Newton. And then for our angle, again, inverse tangent y over x, the tangent or the y again is 10.42 over negative 14.09. And then we can have here the negative 36.48 degree. Ma'am, bakit nga po negative? Kasi siya ay clockwise. So as you can see the resultant graph here, so don't worry, hindi ko na naman siya, actually sa long quiz nga ay you don't need to graph it. Wala namang graphing doon. But for you to know yung concept talaga niya is you're going to draw the negative 14.09 and then 10.42. Kunin mo lang siya kung nasan siya. Kung saan coordinates yan. Or saan quadrant. Ipa-plot nyo. And then as you can see, just connect the resultant vector. And then yun yung magiging angle. Negative 36.48. Kasi from the negative x-axis, makikita mo na clockwise yung naging rotation. That's why siya ay negative. Next, let's have 18. So, find A plus B if we have 45 Newton, 60 Newton, and 270 degree angle. Same lang to na kanina pero may naibang konti. Yung angle ni V2 or nung vector 2. So, we're just going to graph this one. 45 Newton again is on the x positive axis. And then the 60 Newton will be on 270 degree. And they're just going to connect it kasi 270 degrees siya. That's why it is po, the direction is to south. Then you're just going to get the x and y components by putting the magnitude and together with the angle. So we have the Vx1 is equal to 45 Newton and then yung Vy1 is equal to 0. For the second vector, since nasa 270 siya, gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, yung x niya ay magiging 0 kasi nga all of the magnitude lies on y-axis. And then yung By2 is equal to negative 60 Newton. So for that vector components, you can get the summation or the total Vx which is 45 Newton and then Vy is equal to negative 60 Newton. So we have B is equal to x squared for that components, total components. We're just going to put it on the Pythagorean. That will lead you the resultant vectors as 75 Newton. And then for getting the angle, we have tangent, inverse tangent, negative 60 over 45, which is negative 53.13 degrees. So, bakit ulit siya negative? Kung makikita nyo, flip yung triangle, and then yung angle niya is clockwise. Kaya siya naging negative. Number 19. Find A plus B plus C if same kanina we have 3 vectors. But don't be afraid because same lang din naman yung procedures niya. Mag-iiba ka lang dun sa summation because you will going to add 3 vectors. Okay, so we have 500 Newton. We're going to draw 500 Newton into 30 degree, which is the red part. And then sa dulo ni 500 Newton, you're going to write draw x and y axis so that you can draw the second vector, which is 400 Newton. And then as you can see, straight to the x-axis yan because 180 degree. Then once you draw it, let's move on to 200 Newton, the green part. So, as you can see, negative 90 siya. So, since negative 90, you will know that it is the direction is to south. And then, for the head of 400 Newton, you can say that you can get the negative 90 for tracking the clockwise for 90 degree. So, we have this kind of diagram. Now, we're going to move on to the vector components. So for getting vector components, again for x components you will use cosine, and then in y component you will use sine. So 500 cosine 30 will give you Vx1 is equal to 433.01 Newton. In its y component, change cosine to sine, that will give you 250 Newton. And then in next vector, which is 400 Newton at an angle of 180 degree, here you can say that we can just have the Vx or x component because it lies on 180 degrees. So Vx2 will be negative 400 Newton since papunta siyang west, and then si Vy naman is 0 because hindi siya dumaan na y. Vx3, we have V3 cosine theta. Then we have 200 cosine negative theta. Vx3 is equal to 0. And Vy3 is equal to V3 sine theta, which is 200 sine negative 90, will give you negative 200 Newton. Same lang to, since nasa 90 degree siya, makikita nyo na yung x ay nag-0, pero si y ay lahat ng magnitude ay napunta sa kanya. Okay, so for that 3 exponent or 3 pairs of x and y components, are just going to get the summation, which is 433.01 minus 400 plus 0 is equal to 33.01 Newton. And then for By components, we have 250 plus 0 minus 200 will give you 50 Newton. Take note of the x and y components, the total x and y components. You're going to put it on the Pythagorean to get the resultant force. We have 33.01 Newton plus 50 Newton. Square root, we can get 59.91 Newton. And then, the angle, again, inverse tangent y over x. Lagay si 50 sa taas, and then 33.01 will give you 56.57. When we draw it on as a right triangle or the resultant right triangle here. So you're just going to plot 33.01 and then the 50 Newton na nasa taas. So nasa quadrant 1 yun. Then ang ikot ng angle is counterclockwise. That's why it is positive. Okay, last number we have find A plus B if we have two vectors 50 Newton at 135 degree and 90 Newton at 280 degree. So, draw first the first one which is 50 Newton. Clockwise ang counterclockwise ang ikot ng pagdadraw we have 135 degree. And then sa dulo ni 50 Newton, you're going to make X and Y axis para makuha mo si 280 degree. Counterclockwise din yan. And then, you're going to put the magnitude which is 19 Newton. So, that will be the diagram. So, for X and Y components, once again, you're going to use By cosine theta, which is 50 cosine 135. It's equal to negative 35.36 Newton. And in Y exponent, you will use sine. 50 sine 135 will give you 35.36 Newton. Same procedure ng ginawa natin sa vector 1 sa vector 2. So, we have 90 cosine 280 will give you 15.63 Newton. And in V2 sine theta, we have 90 sine 280 which is negative 88.63 Newton. Then, we're going to sum the X and Y components. For X, we have a total of negative 19.73 Newton. Again, don't forget the sign in adding vectors. In Y, we can have the negative 53.27 Newton. For that, we're going to use the Pythagorean and we'll lead you the resultant force as 56.81 Newton. And then for that angle, inverse tangent sa taas ang Y, negative 53.27 over 19.73 negative will give you 69.68. For that angle, malalaman natin na siya ay counterclockwise. So, you can graph the right triangle here by putting or plotting the coordinates 1973 and then 53.27 for that graph. And then you can find that the angle is counterclockwise. That is positive. Okay, so that's all for the graded recitation discussion. Please take note to study for long quiz tomorrow. Thank you.